then secondly, uh, there are still these special elections coming up in Georgia, and so it's just barely possible that there's like the slimmest possible Democratic majority in the Senate. But that's probably not going to happen. Biden is probably going to have a Republican Senate, which, by the way, is why Wall Street responded with ecstasy to the election results. Because why wouldn't they, right? Because they've got everything, right? They've got a president who will take the virus seriously and not cause chaos. And they've got a Senate that guarantees that their taxes won't go up at all.
Yeah, it's a win-win. It's just gangbusters out there on Wall Street. It's kind of convenient though that the Pfizer announcement came out with the vaccine trial this week, because it's not now. Now they it's like they have a lot of splaining to do if Wall Street just skyrocketed and the only news was that Biden looked like the clear winner, wouldn't they? But now they're like, well, probably because of Biden, but also the vaccine. Sure, yeah. It would be a lot more awkward for sure.
Yeah, right. Like, and by the way, I think we've got to give like everybody's crazy uncle this, that there is a political component to the fact that they announced this when they did, and not
sure.
like a week and a half earlier, because what they were announcing wasn't, they weren't announcing, hey, this has cleared everything and it's ready to go. What they were announcing was, looks good so far. We've got a few more weeks to be sure. So it's like, well, hold on. You couldn't have given us a look, I think that the Trumpist reaction to this is actually right? I mean, like that it is a political thing, and it does indicate that they prefer Biden to Trump, which why wouldn't you, right? Like it's like, give credit where credit's due. I think I'm stealing this from the guys on the Citations Needed podcast. They've got a good line about when they're talking about media bias, when they say, yeah, sure, the media is biased against Trump. Of course they are. They're also biased against cancer, right? Like that's not, that's not it. Like, there are basic reasons why, these blood-sucking corporations would dislike Trump that actually in some cases overlap with the reasons why people with the opposite interests would dislike him, which is that having a mismanaged or really unmanaged plague run rampant through society is bad for business, right? It's also it's also bad for everything else.
Yeah, and just from a macro perspective, to channel my old mentor Leo Panich on this, is that markets don't run by themselves. You have this thing called the relative autonomy of the state, but that also means that the state has to function within the parameters of the market, but the market also has to function with the coordination of the state. And you need state managers to step in a competent and serious way to help coordinate the economy and all of its complexity, so that these bastards can keep making their billions. And they understand that there's only a degree of flexibility in those arrangements where they talk about, well, we need to deregulate and let the markets rip, but not too much though. Please, Daddy, come back, save us. Now, and Biden's Daddy's coming back to save the day and to coordinate the economy, to re-regulate in a rational way, which means a profitable way, a way that's going to be continually profitable for everyone, such that a systemic crisis doesn't, come down on them and all of us. So, it just goes to show. And I think, but we also need to be really careful about this too, because you didn't ask the question, but I'll answer it anyway. We need to be serious about the importance of managing the economy, though, at the same time.
Of course.
And it's like, I think if the left is going to see itself, and I know you sort of brought me on to riff about the left over the next 4 years, right? My whole thing, and I'm going to be I've always been hammered. I've been hammering on it. I'm going to continue hammering. I'm going to double, triple down on it. Is that the left needs to get serious about what it means to be serious. The left needs to get serious about what it means to seriously portray itself as a competent, legitimate form of authority and power in society, that we are actually challenging for political power, even in the state. And we know what it takes, and we're ready to do what it takes. And something about what it takes is, it has to be being serious and being mature and being a grown up left, joining the rest of the global left in its maturity, right? Something that the South and Central American left has long known. is that if you want to be serious and you want to be able to take power, you have to be able to manage an economy. And how much shit did Mas get? The movement for socialism in Bolivia a couple of weeks ago, when their new leaders were talking about the importance of beefing up the economy from American Twitter leftoids, right? They're like, oh, these guys are so it just goes to show that there's neoliberals in the government now, and they aren't the real Marxist left because they want to boost the economy and get jobs for people. They're grifters.
If they were like real appropriately hardcore socialists,
they'd smash the state.
They'd smash the state. They would be
the big hammer,
different to all consequences of anything that could happen. Which for people in Bolivia who are starting out with a living standard that is unfathomably worse, than the living standards of the people who are making these comments. And also, whatever. I mean, I guess it's maybe this is my this is my Trotsky showing, but if you even could achieve full socialism in one country, it certainly wouldn't be Bolivia.
That's right. No, I don't think so. No, you sooner start in Mississippi or something. In terms of economic power, this is not a, like military capabilities and all the rest of it.
This is not a slam on
financial power. There's like more financial power in Biloxi, Mississippi, or I got that right. Yeah, that's Mississippi. Then it's on the border. I know. Then in all of Bolivia, and so
right. Which is not anything bad about Bolivia. It's just that yes, this is a country that's been severely underdeveloped by colonialism and imperialism, and so even like getting up to the level of an economy that hasn't had those experiences would be a dramatic, quantum leap forward. And they're certainly not going to exist in hermetic isolation from the world economy without really having famines and just not to mention extreme authoritarianism, because that's the only way to get people to live with famines, without doing anything about it. And so, I mean, I don't think, I think that if being a properly radical socialist means that you think that Bolivia should become North Korea, then properly radical socialism doesn't sound very appealing to me.
Nor anyone else. And so you're going to have a lot of people to shove into the gulags, I'll tell you right now, starting with me and pretty much everybody else, who, by the way, can throw a better punch than you, and they're better armed than you are too. So good luck with that. The democratic road to socialism is the only one that's available to us. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm very sorry to say. I know it's not that fun. It's not much like a movie. It's very much unlike 1917, perhaps, but it's the only one that's available to us right now, and so we have to deal with that. But again,
exactly. And by the way, let's not miss the fact that this is actually a rare spot of extremely good news for the global left. That as much as they might not be Bolshevik enough for some people on left Twitter, the Mas, when Morales was in power, did tremendously improve life for ordinary Bolivians, with reforms, because that's what's available, at that historical juncture in that country at that time. And it was removed by an actual fascist coup, right? It wasn't that there was some Bolivian equivalent of Trump who had press conferences and tweeted for a month, but the actual real serious kind where the military tells the person who won the election they have to step down, and it was defeated, which is amazing and very rare. Otherwise, what's happened in the last year, I mean, I guess you can also include AMLO's victory in Mexico. I think more complicated politically, but but a good thing. But otherwise, what's happened last year was, the absolute boy went down in flames in the UK. Bernie Sanders lost the primary in the US. We are going to have a Biden administration that looks like it's going to be a Biden administration with some golden excuses for not doing much of anything to help people. Most obviously a Republican Senate, so we're going to spend the next couple of years at the very least hearing people say, "Oh, you foolish, irresponsible leftists don't understand how the political process works. You don't know that Biden actually couldn't do anything that he's not doing because the Senate would stop him."
Yeah,
Uh,
cocaine Mitch is gonna step in and stop him.
yeah,
We're gonna see a real cocaine Mitch after he's like, weekend at Bernie's there, and his handlers are just like rubbing pure Peruvian flake under his gums to get him to preside over the Senate. He doesn't look well, man. He doesn't. I mean, I don't
no,
wish
he
death on
doesn't.
anybody, but my man
Yeah,
McConnell's struggling.
yeah. Yeah, he should be. His donors should agree to release him so he can spend what time he has left with his family.
Yeah.
But
Agree with these.
but and then also the fact that that the virus has caused this economic meltdown, which is partially recovered, but we're also looking at new lockdowns probably.
For sure.
And I think there's very little chance of like the kind of serious Keynesian stuff accompanying that might actually, like sufficiently blunt the economic consequences of that. So told, hey, look, I mean, I know you guys, want Biden to do the New Deal, but come on, we're the economy is in shambles and there's a Republican Senate. He's doing the best he can, is what we're going to hear from everybody for the next couple of years. And I guess I'm pretty pessimistic. I mean, obviously I will, do what I do, and I'm sure I'll write about 500 articles for Jacobin in the next couple of years saying, hey, Democrats say that Biden couldn't do anything about X, but here are 5 things he could do about it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do that, and I think it's good at least to arm people, who start out basically agreeing with us so they know what to say to people who say stuff like that. But I'm also not optimistic that we'll make that much headway, for one thing, because we already saw this. We've seen this movie before. This was the Obama administration, and even somebody like AOC said not that long ago in an interview or one of the Twitch things she does, whatever, something like that, right? That and I'm not an AOC hater. I'm very glad that she's there. As somebody who calls herself a socialist and advocates a lot of important things, but she was even saying things like, well, Obama might not have been as progressive as I like, but he did what he could, Republicans, yada yada. So even 12 years, so I guess like 12 years after Obama took office, 4 years after he left office, even the best people in mainstream politics, some of them are still parroting this line. So I'm not super optimistic about our ability to dispel it.
I'm not. I mean, I'm not. I don't think you brought me on to like defend AOC and the squad, but you might get it though. It's like I think that might, you're going to catch her saying that. And look, I'm not here to stand for AOC and everything she's ever said. I'd love to be one. I'd love to advise her. I think she'd be an open ear and whatever. But who's to say who's in her ear and where she's coming from? The stuff she ranges, her statements, public statements range from like, oh fuck yes, to all the way to like just pure cringe. But at the same time, they're pushing back. I mean, you've seen AOC go to war, on at least on Twitter. We'll see what's happening behind closed doors. You saw Rashida Tlaib being the first to sort of clap up Abigail Spanberger when she scoffed the socialism stuff. And their first caucus call immediately following the election. You saw Ilhan Omar, Representative Omar, go after Hakeem Jeffries, like it's basically by name. When Jeffries was saying, when choosing between, high-minded ideals and governing, we adults in the room are always going to choose to govern. And Ilhan, clapped him up in a quote tweet and basically said, like, what the fuck makes you think that like seeing to the needs of your constituents is in any way, in opposition to governing? Like that, if that's not what you're doing when you're governing, then you're doing it wrong. And so you've got and then you've got Bowman, you've got Bush, you've got a lot of other people who are coming in with even more stridently socialist and humanistic ideals. And so I think that you're seeing the beginnings of a real fighting bloc in Congress. And so, I mean, I mean, I hear you. It's a horribly dispiriting time to be a socialist right now. I mean, you've got the failures of Sanders and Corbyn, and, what happened in Bolivia and all across the pink tide is not faring well, and they're falling prey to their own contradictions. And just because we're pro Evo on your show, and we're pro Mas and pumped about the success that they're having in Chile and overturning the Pinochet era constitution, and all the rest of it, doesn't mean we aren't super aware of the limitations of the pink tide. And we should be working with leftists across the country or across the world to learn lessons, to do it better this time and next time. It's a very dispiriting time in many ways, to be on the left, but like, we should take heart in the fact that the sentiment, the needs haven't gone anywhere. I mean, that's what we found in Bolivia. Right. I mean, you see, they didn't even need a second round of voting. It was with 53, 54%, something like that. They didn't go, despite the fact that, the indigenous trade union movement in Bolivia was being like brutalized and murdered over the past couple of years, over the past year, at least explicitly, they didn't go anywhere. Their minds weren't changed. Their needs weren't changed. The structural contradictions that they're facing in that country hadn't changed. And so when they had an opportunity, they enthusiastically voted the socialists back in. And I think, that's what you're going to see across the country, but it's going to require the political leadership to change course.
Yeah. And by the way, I should just say, right, to anybody who's listening to this, who might be confused about the point about the pink tide, and all of that. Of course, if the question is pink tide good or pink tide bad, yeah, good, of course.
Good.
Right? No question.
Good. Very good, easy. Very good. Quick, good. I choked on my coffee, shouting, screaming good.
Yeah. And but I think you can acknowledge that there are mistakes, that there are inherent limitations, that aren't even a matter of anybody making a mistake. Yeah. And
this is what we call, high-minded Marxists call these structural contradictions, right? They're contradictions that are largely resulting of surely decisions that were made, but compounded collective decisions that sort of have a way of getting away from you. And of course, then it's also your material base that you're working with. What's the political economy of the country that you're dealing with? What are the capacities that are afforded to you by that political economy? I'm throwing a lot of jargon in here, but this is the way that we need to start talking. And this is how you talk about politics like a grown-up.
Yeah, well, right? and that's the other thing I want to clarify for anybody who might be watching this or listening to this, who might be confused about it, because the point, because I could see somebody saying, hold on, a couple of minutes ago, Adam and Ben were laughing at, people who were upset that Evo, not Evo anymore, he's leading the Trade Union Federation, but his party, that Mas, isn't going to, try to implement full communism, in the next year, and that they are in fact concerned with managing the economy. But then, here you're saying that when people make parallel sounding, right, critiques of like the Squad or the sort of beginnings of a socialist left, that's ridiculous. And both are true, right? The point is that if you're acting as if it was absurd to try to implement basic reforms that would make people's lives better, right? That's silly. But the other side of that is if you think that, okay, well, the reforms are nice, but why aren't you 1917ing yet? That's also silly. That that we do, when Adam talks about a democratic road to socialism, right? Like, we do have horizons that go beyond social democracy. We want to completely transform foundationally the structure of the economy, but that's not something that you can do overnight. You sure as hell can't do it in a small, undeveloped country that would die immediately if cut off from the world economy. But you can't even do it that way in general. That if you're going to build a long-term stable majority that wants to be on this road, then you need you need to do two things, right? You need to be doing things that are actually meeting people's needs, that are making their lives better, that, that they can see, what they're getting out of it. Nobody's ever going to support, like, look, if you want to talk about 1917, the Bolsheviks in 1917 didn't say you should support us because then we're going to, you should support us because that will ultimately lead to a higher stage communism where we'll abolish the value form. What they said was land, peace, bread, right? That we're going to pull the country out of World War One. We're going to distribute land to landless peasants, and everybody's going to have bread. That's the kind of sales pitch that can actually work. And so, I think that you can and should think all three things, right? That you can't, that it's ridiculous to criticize people for not sort of going to 10 immediately as if it were just a matter of will, as if the reason why we weren't living under socialism right now is because
they're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, it's because like you just have like
they only felt it a little bit more in their hearts, Ben. We could have gotten there by now.
Exactly, but also that we can get there, and meanwhile, that we can certainly have vastly more aggressive reform agenda than than anything that these feckless, awful liberals would ever get behind. All three of those things are true.